In Romans chapter 1, verse 16 and 17, the Apostle Paul writes, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." The focus for today's devotional is unashamed. And it's from this passage of Paul, which Paul gives us this simple statement to the Romans saying, "I am not ashamed of the gospel." And this is so powerful, and I believe it's so applicable to us nowadays, because living unashamed is extremely important in order for us to carry out our roles as communicators of the gospel, preachers of the gospel. Now, notice one thing. Preaching is not necessarily just doing it with the microphone in your hands, and communicating doesn't always have to be a public speaker with an audience of many people. Maybe you are communicating the gospel to just one neighbor, or one colleague at work, or one fellow student in your classroom. It matters not where or how, but it does matter that we see the message of the gospel as a message worth communicating. And that's the power of it. Certainly there's various ways to communicate the gospel. We communicate the gospel through actions, through words. We communicate the gospel in various ways, in multiple different ways. Jesus says that He is the only way to the Father, but there are many ways to reveal Jesus Himself. And the thing is never shying away from the opportunity of introducing Jesus into conversation. At the end of the day, we must see the gospel as the essential and powerful message that it is. And as disciples of Christ, we've been talking about acquiring this disciple mentality. A disciple mentality means that we are always looking for ways to introduce Jesus into the conversation, to introduce Jesus into the interaction. We're always looking for ways because we see our lives as a tool to reveal the power of God and the efficacy of the power of Jesus. And when we have this disciple mentality, we're always looking for ways to introduce the gospel because we're unashamed. And we see the power in it. The Apostle Paul says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes." And if we see the power in the message, we can't shy away from an opportunity to present it. So I hope that this produces in your heart a passion for the message of the gospel, and that you become unashamed. And this is, it may seem like something that's, the message of the gospel may seem like something that is not very applicable to us nowadays in this modern time. When we talk about these spiritual truths and we talk about the supernatural conviction that we have, you know, this hope for resurrection, for eternity, for the New Jerusalem, and for the return of Jesus Christ when He will rapture His church. And we talk about heaven and hell and these spiritual things. Sometimes the modern culture wants to ridicule these convictions. And if we're not careful, we will allow these thoughts to infiltrate our minds, causing us to lose confidence in the power of this message. That's why we need to have confidence. We need to know Jesus. We need to live the life of Jesus so that we can communicate or share the person of Jesus effectively and unapologetically. You see, we can't be afraid and we can't shy away from the gospel, from sharing the gospel. We can't be ashamed of it. So I hope that we can develop this conviction, this assurance, this certainty in the power of this message, because there's nothing like it. It's the message that brings about our salvation. It's the message that brings about our healing. It's the message that brought about our transformation, and I cannot shy away from an opportunity to share it. So we ought to live unashamed. We ought to live unashamed because the gospel is the power of God to salvation. So I pray that you do become an evangelist, so to speak. That you do become a communicator of the gospel in every capacity you can. And that you may present to God what you feel is your inability or your lack of qualifications. Because some of us do shy away from it, as we spoke about it yesterday, because we feel like we don't know Bible passages by heart, or we can't explain certain biblical truths. And we shy away from communicating because we fear not being able to answer a certain question that may be asked or address a certain debate if we ever engage in it. But the goal of communicating the gospel is not to engage into a debate, because it is not my role to convince anybody. My role is to preach, and the Spirit of God is the one who does the convincing. So when you preach, when you speak without fear and without shame, knowing that the Spirit of God will do His part. So be an evangelist, be unashamed, be a preacher of the message, of the powerful message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you will experience wonderful and beautiful things, because other people will begin to see the beauty in not only the message of Jesus, but also the person of Jesus that is revealed through you. This is what it truly means to have a disciple mentality and to share Christ. God bless you.